Okay, so today we're talking about part 3 of unit lesson 3B. So here's the homework from part 2. And today we're talking about sampling poorly. So we talked about simple random sample, and we did stratified and cluster and systematic. Those are all good, right? Those are good ways to do it. A convenience sample, ooh, not so good. This consists of people who are easy to reach. I might walk outside my room, grab a group of students and ask them a question. That's a convenience sample. They were just close to my room. There was no reason for me I didn't choose them randomly. I just select whoever was easiest. Asking your friends questions instead of going out randomly and asking people. That's a convenience sample. The design of this study shows bias. It is very likely to underestimate or overestimate the value you truly want to know, because you're probably getting, if you're finding a group that's kind of just hanging out together, it's very possible they're similar minded and they're not going to be representative of the population. So it will most likely contain quite a bit of bias. So how could a sample survey lead to bias? So you want to talk about two things. Describe how the members might have responded differently than the rest of the population, because if they're not representative of the population, that's bad. Explain how the difference might lead to, and you want to make a prediction. Would it be an overestimate or an underestimate? So typically you're gonna be asked to kind of like make a call there. What do you think might happen if that was the group? For example, if you caught people as they're coming out of Kroger to the parking lot and asked them a question about how good do you think Kroger is as a grocery store? I think there'd be a lot of bias, right? Because those people are already shopping at Kroger. It's most likely going to overestimate their responses are going to overestimate how the true general public feels about Kroger, because there are already people who shop at Kroger. So maybe some people who don't shop at Kroger aren't getting their voice heard. So bias is not just bad luck, but it's oftentimes, designed poorly. It's a bad study that's just going to miss the truth. So this is a big deal. Voluntary response sample consists of those who choose to be in the sample by responding. So sometimes we call those self-selected samples. I actually like that name a lot just because it makes sense. So if you have a poll on a website and you decide to answer the poll for some reason, you have self-selected yourself to be part of that poll. It's a voluntary response. Usually people who self-select or voluntarily respond to things feel very strongly one way or another. So that's what happens. In 2016, Britain's National Environmental Research Council invited the public to name its 300 million polar research ship. To vote on the name, people simply needed to visit a website and record their choice. Ignoring names suggested by the council, more than 124,000 people voted for Bodie McBoatface, which ended up having more than 3 times as many votes as the second place finisher. Oh my goodness. What type of sample did the council use in their poll? So it seems like they used voluntary response, right? Because people are self-selecting and choosing that. So explain how bias in this sampling method could have affected the poll results. So by just letting people self-select like that, only people who really wanted Bodie McBoatface, they felt strongly about that. Maybe they saw something on social media and they were motivated by that and they wanted to make their opinion known. Definitely voluntary response sample. They were probably less serious about the science than the British population as a whole. So it's safe to say they overestimated the popularity of Bodie McBoatface. Remember to describe how the responses from the members might differ from the response of the population, how this difference will likely affect the estimate. So what is undercoverage? That's when they kind of overlooked or sometimes cannot be chosen for the sample. They're just People who hold members sometimes of the population, the homeless would be one example of undercoverage. They're probably not going to be part of most polls. They may not have, um, an address and so forth that maybe is being used to randomly sample people. So non-response occurs when an individual chosen for a sample can't be contacted or refuses to participate. That happens. That's inevitable. You can't do too much about non-response bias, but under coverage, you can try to reach everybody, at least make an attempt at it when you do that. So be careful, non-responses when they don't, they're called up on the phone or they're emailed a survey and they don't take it. So that's different than voluntary response. Response bias, this happens for sure when you kind of want to please the interviewer, the person who's asking the question. You want to, so in this case, what percentage of Americans wash their hands after using the bathroom? Answer the question depends on how you collect the data. In a telephone survey of 1,006 US adults, 96% said they always wash their hands. Okay. But an observational study, so maybe they had this would be weird, they had a video recorder or someone in the bathroom recording how many people actually wash their hands. And it found out that only 85% actually wash their hands. So people say, I wash my hands, but some people don't wash their hands after going to the bathroom. So why are they different? Because I think, again, that's called response bias. So response bias is when you want to please the interviewer. You don't want to seem like an idiot in front of the interviewer and say, oh, I don't always wash my hands or something. They want to appear like they have good hygiene. Even though they don't know the interviewer, sometimes we want to please them. Or they tell us how they did it. If no one was present, they might have done worse. Actually, I think that's 100% true. Just the fact of having someone else in the bathroom after they have to walk by the sink without stopping. I think that's the actual figure is going to be lower. I think that's an over prediction there of how many people actually wash their hands. That's your whole lesson today. So that was pretty quick. Let's look at a couple examples. So Gardner has a large garden with 20 plants, would like to estimate the number of tomatoes in the garden at a given time. The gardener counts a total of 53 tomatoes on the 5 plants in the closest rows of the garden, the row along the southern edge nearest to the house, and estimates that there would be a 53 by 4, so 212 tomatoes in the whole garden. What type of sample did the gardener take? Explain how bias in the sampling could affect the estimate of the total number of tomatoes in the garden. Okay, so the garden counts a total of 53 tomatoes on the 5 plants in the closest row of the garden, the row along the southern edge nearest to the house. And estimates there would be 53 times, so there's times 4, 212. I have to read this again. As a large garden with, so there's 20, I have to kind of picture this. There's 20 plants in rows, and 5 of the plants in the closest row, he counted all the tomatoes. And so maybe the row closest to the south gets more sun or less sun, and the tomatoes grow better. My guess is that on the edge there, the tomatoes would grow a little bit better, and so maybe an over prediction. See what they said. This is like a convenience sample. The plants closest to the house are likely the easiest to water, weed, and fertilize. Oh, that's probably true. And because they're on the southern edge, they probably get the best exposure to sunlight. For these reasons, it's very possible that the actual number of tomatoes in the garden is less than 212. So again, I like that they pointed out that was a convenience sample. Just choose the closest row to you is very convenient. It wasn't chosen randomly, right? So based on true story, some residents of a small town in Pennsylvania were upset when they heard Walmart wanted to open a store in their town. That actually happened in Cordova, I believe. as well at one point near Houston Levee. At the next town council meeting, one resident showed the council members poll of a random sample of township residents, which showed that 92% polled were against having the store opening in their town. After a council member requested more information, the poll question was revealed. Are you against a Walmart opening in our township, which would increase traffic delays, noise, and pollution? Okay, the question itself has a lot of bias there. Explain how the wording of this question could result in bias. Is the question from the sample who say they're against the opening likely to be greater or less than the true percentage against this? So I'm guessing the true percentage is going to be less because they made it sound so bad, this Walmart. So the wording makes it unclear if they're against opening the Walmart or against the second half of the question, which is about traffic delays, noise, and pollution. That's your lesson for today.